On today's episode of What's Going On with Shipping, the Philippines are withdrawing its mariners from the Red Sea. I'm your host, Sal Mercogliano. Welcome to today's episode. So, there was an attack executed by the Houthi against a bulker by the name of the Transworld Navigator, and there's a lot of interesting facets of this attack. They used, once again, unmanned surface vessels, and so we're going to talk about that. But the other one is the crew on board the Transworld Navigator were Filipinos. And the Department of Migrant Workers are announcing in the Philippines that it will no longer allow Filipino mariners to crew vessels sailing through the Red Sea, the Bab el-Mandab, and the Gulf of Aden. And this is significant because Filipinos make up the largest segment of the world's merchant mariners out there. What does this mean going forward? We're going to talk about it in today's episode. If you're new to the channel, hey, take a moment, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you'll be alerted about new videos as they come out. Here's the latest data from the Washington Institute site. Really excited to have one of the two creators of this database on the show. Going to be filming that later this week and have it posted for you next week. Transworld Navigator bulk carrier attacked by a UAV, unmanned aerial vehicle, but we know that's been updated based on this information we have. Liberian flag, Greek owned and operated according to several databases. The bulk carrier experienced another attack, this time in the southern Red Sea, according to the UK MTO. The master of the ship reported being hit by a UAV, although the vessel sustained damage, was able to proceed to its next port of call. U.S. CENTCOM said the attack on June 23rd was the fourth attack against the vessel. On June 30th, the Houthis released a vessel purportedly showing the bulk carrier being attacked by a drone boat. This is the release by the Houthi military. I'll do our little Brady Bunch move here and point to my good friend over here. Dude never smiles, man. I don't know what he is. He is uptight. Uptight dude. Never smiles. Screams all the time. I don't know what he's screaming about all the time. I guess if I was the Houthi, I'd be screaming all the time too. But anyway, this is his statement that he released. Naval forces of our armed forces carried out specific military operations targeting the Transworld Navigator ship in the Arabian Sea with a number of ballistic missiles. So ballistic missiles are not what hit this vessel, according to what they released later on. It goes on, the ship was targeted because the company that owns it violated the decision ban of entry into the ports of occupied Palestine. That is what they call the nation state of Israel. And they are once again using their 6 degrees of separation to Kevin Bacon to link all vessels back to Israel because the owner of this company had a vessel that went into Israel. Therefore, all other vessels are clouded and tainted and therefore legitimate targets of the Houthi. They also go on here and talk about the missile forces of our armed forces carried out a targeting operation against the U.S. carrier Eisenhower in the northern Red Sea with a number of ballistic and cruise missiles, and the operation has achieved its objectives successfully. And if its objectives was to miss the Eisenhower, bang on, 100% complete. Great job, because I just saw images of it up in Crete at Suda Bay. Looks fine, getting ready to sail out of the Gibraltar, heading back to the United States, shortly to be replaced by the Theodore Roosevelt. So this is video supposedly from Transworld Navigator showing the approach of the unmanned surface vessel. You can see it off the port bow here, closing into the area. I'm going to fast forward this because they duck down behind the bulwark, and they're down behind the bulwark for quite a period of time here. So this is the larger video that the Houthi released on the attack, and there's a precursor to this that says this is the attack on the Transworld Navigator, but I just cut that out. This is being filmed from a chase boat, and that is significant because we've seen this multiple times now with these operations, that they have these chase boats that follow these events take place. You will also notice here on the vessel is riding high, it's in ballast. It's coming from China, heading to Russia. We know that because of its track and its reporting, and what it basically does is carrying ore for transportation over to China. So the next part of the video here shows you the method that they used in this attack. And this is their unmanned surface vessels. I've cut the audio out, which is great 1970s audio track. I'm not sure where they're getting their music from, but it's fantastic. And so you get these dynamic, fast boats moving around. You can see them maneuvering between buoys. Fantastic. I have a boat. I could do the same exact thing. I don't think it's very impressive. What I find really interesting is this. That aspect right there where the crews are jumping off the boats. You see, these boats have to be physically driven out to the scene by drivers. And more importantly, the throttle has to be set by the drivers, and then the crew has to quote unquote evacuate it by jumping into the Red Sea, because the control that they use is basically just a remote control by radio signal. They have captured mythbuster technology of how to drive a boat remotely. The only thing they didn't do is drive it up a boat ramp and reenact a scene from a James Bond movie. But instead what they're doing is using these boats remote controlly and pack them with explosives to ride them into the side of vessels, which means the counter to these boats is literally radio jamming. All we need is radio jamming to break the signal between the transmitters from the chase boats and the boats that are following them, or just blow up the chase boats. These are not the level of technology that we see, for example, being used in Ukraine. So a little bit about the Transworld Navigator. She is currently sitting at anchor south of the Suez. So she was able to steam out of the area and get to that area south of Suez. However, the 27-person crew on board the vessel has been evacuated. Philippines has reported the arrival of the 27 crew members in 3 different groups back home. So that means the ship has suffered damage substantial enough that the ship is probably heading into a shipyard in Suez for repair to get it into a position where it can sail again. The ship was in ballast, it was empty, so there's no cargo on board. So the ship is probably just in the holding anchorage waiting for availability to head up there at this time. And this is a live track of the vessel, so we know it's right there just south of Suez Canal. So this is an infographic that was included in that video, and using my handy dandy Google Translate, I will translate for you. This is the gunboat Destructive Flood, although I've seen it used in different ways with that. Drone attack boat. It's got a warhead of between 1,000 and 1,500 kilograms, speed of about 45 nautical miles per hour, supported with advanced technology. Again, they're using radio control for this. I'm not exactly sure it's that high tech. High destructive capability, works in all maritime conditions. Yes, all maritime conditions in which you have to tow this boat out into the region, put 1 or 2 people into it, manually drive it, get it going toward the target, and then jump off into the Red Sea, the Bab el-Mandab, or the Gulf of Aden. So again, this is not quite the level of technology we're seeing in the in the Black Sea, for example. And don't take my word for that. H.I. Sutton over at Covert Shores has done a great piece that I'll have a link into the show notes on, about the Houthi, as he calls them, the Blowfish. Somebody was going to go with that joke, and I guess it was H.I. Sutton who went with it. So Houthi and the Blowfish and their uncrewed surface vessels, everything from the skiff that was used recently against a Tudor, back to the converted patrol boat in 2017 that was used to hit a Saudi frigate, up to the vessels we're seeing right now. But this is a story I want to end with because I think it's the most important one that comes out of the Transworld Navigator. This comes out of the Philippines news agency. This was released today, July 3rd. And the Department of Migrant Workers welcomed back 22 more crew members of the motor vessel Transworld Navigator, who arrived in 2 batches. All 27 Filipino seafarers of the Liberian flag and Greek-owned and operated cargo carrier that was attacked by Yemen's Houthi rebels last week are now back and safe. 5 seafarers arrived in the country on Sunday. It goes on here and talks about some previous attacks as we come down here. There we go. Earlier, DMW Secretary Hans Leo Kaktak said this was the 4th shipping vessel manned by Filipino crew members to be attacked by Houthi rebels at the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. The others were the motor vessel Galaxy Leader, which is still being held by the Houthi, and the crew hostage. They have not released them since November. So if the Houthi are talking about, being in league with the Palestinians and the horror about what's happening in it, I'm not exactly sure why they're holding innocent crew members hostage. They are, and they're subjecting them to some terrible videos. If you've watched any of the videos from the Galaxy Leader, they're terrible. The motor vessel True Confidence, where we saw three mariners killed, two Filipinos and a Vietnamese, and then the Tudor, where another Filipino was killed. So three Filipinos have died so far. The DMW announced in late June that the government will no longer allow Filipino seafarers to board vessels passing through the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. The DMW also requires manning agencies to submit a detailed itinerary of their vessels during the process of crew employment contracts or before deployment. It's not unusual for shipping companies to say we're going to go somewhere and then they go somewhere else, especially in the oil trade, which is basically the spot market. They go to wherever the trade is, so ships can go almost anywhere. It's not like a scheduled liner service of something like the container ships. Why this is significant is because Filipinos make up the largest segment in the seafaring community. This comes from a recent review of Maritime Transport, the 2021 edition, where they used the BIMCO's ICS Seafarer Workforce Report of 2021. Talks about how globally 1.9 million seafarers work to supply shipping, and that's up from about 1.6 million in 2015. Breaks it down, but most importantly, it talks about the fact that the 5 largest seafaring supply countries were the Philippines, the Russian Federation, Indonesia, China, and India, representing 44% of the global workforce, with the Philippines being number 1 in both officers and unlicensed ratings. It goes on here, in 2019, the Philippines, for example, earned $30.1 billion for its overseas workers, 9.3% of their GDP and 7.3% of the gross national income, of which 6.5 billion came from its seafarers. This has the potential, if Philippines are not going to send seafarers onto vessels heading through this region, and we're seeing still vessels head through. Again, we've seen a reduction through the region of about 1/2 to 2/3 the number of ships going through the region. If Filipinos can no longer work on those ships, that means that shipping companies are going to go look for other countries to find them. And in number 2 place is Russia, and climbing in the standings is China. And the potential here is for China and Russian mariners to replace Filipinos as the largest workforce out there. And I think that is significant. It's significant. We've seen the Chinese doing this during COVID. They made it very hard to do crew changes. They were trying to really see the replacement of many ships with Chinese crew members. And now this element has the potential to drive further Filipino mariners out. Now, there's a lot of ships bypassing the region. We know that. About 2/3 of the ships that normally sail through the region are bypassing the region. So there's still plenty of jobs out there for Filipino mariners. But this does have an impact. And again, if the Houthi are trying to do this in line with the Palestinians and Hamas, they are hurting the Philippines more than anybody else right now, it seems, in these attacks. They've killed 3 Filipinos along with the Vietnamese. This is impacting the Filipino economy. This is going to potentially force some Filipinos to lose their jobs, giving way to replacement by Russians, Chinese, Indonesians, Indians, and that has a detriment on the Philippines. And again, this goes to an attack on global shipping. Late announcement in June that the Philippines is not going to send mariners through this is going to be important to watch, because the Philippines plays a major role in crewing vessels across the world. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, hey, take a moment, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you'll be alerted about new videos as they come out. Leave a comment, share it across social media, and if you can, support the page. How do you do that? Hit that super thanks button down below, or head on over to Patreon and become a monthly or yearly subscriber. Until our next video, this is Sal, signing off.